Xbox Game Pass claims to have over 100 high-quality games to offer, and while there is definitely 100 games on this Game Pass, how many of these are actually high quality? Well, we're gonna find out. For our first contender, we have the Ascent, which is comfortably sitting at 3.2 stars on the Microsoft Store. It seems like most complaints come from multiplayer so far, just not working. But I'm not too worried about that because I'm going to be playing single player. So first impressions, this game is beautiful. I absolutely love the art style and they nailed the cyberpunk aesthetic. Another big plus this game has is the sound design. The sound design team must have put in overtime when working on this. Just listen to the music and the ambient sounds. It just sounds beautiful. After this surprisingly long intro, we're brought to the character creation screen, which is overall pretty basic. This was pretty upsetting to me, especially if you're going for an RPG style game. Character creation is rather important, and just having a choice for just a couple faces isn't as in depth as a lot of games should go. It makes it really hard to form a connection with your character. But that's enough of the boring stuff. Let's get into the gameplay. The first thing you'll probably notice is that this is a twin stick shooter. So if you don't know what that is, if you ever played Call of Duty Zombies Arcade, it's that same style of gameplay. Personally, I've never been too big of a fan of this genre, but I feel like this game does add some pretty cool elements that should be incorporated into more games of this style. My biggest pet peeve beginning this game, the tutorial is long, extremely long. And I hope you like prompts because this game has a lot of prompts. I get it. As a game developer, if you're making a tutorial for your game, you gotta act like the players never picked up a controller in their life. But to an extent, presenting way too much information too early is enough to drive away some people. There is a ridiculous amount of information presented to you in the beginning of this game, and most of it isn't really relevant until a bit later. So if I could make any change, it would be to present that information as it becomes relevant. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the combat. For the first few minutes, I thoroughly enjoyed the combat. I thought it was very fun, the guns sound good, but it does get very repetitive very quickly. So far, I've only put an hour into the game, but I can tell unless they spice it up with different enemy types, which I'm sure they do at a certain point, it's super repetitive. You have melee and ranged enemies, and you take cover, you can shoot over cover, and that's about it. There's two other aspects to combat I haven't really been able to make use of. One is like a Cyberpunk 2047 style upgrade system where you get cybernetic enhancements that allow you to do pretty cool abilities, but it's hard to find a case where you can be effective with them, so you really do feel like you're limited to just shooting and taking cover. The other one can be useful in certain situations. You throw a stun grenade. I'm pretty sure you can change out the types of grenades you use, but that's really it. It's an RPG style twin stick shooter. It's pretty cool, honestly. I do like the art style. I think it's enough for me to want to finish the game and just see where it takes me. The only thing preventing me from doing that right now is the story. I find it, I don't want to say dreadful because that's not the right word, but it's pretty boring. It's the standard, oh, this planet's corporation is disintegrating and you need to do what you can to save it. And the final point I want to make about this game is the boss fights. First of all, I just want to commend whoever made the cutscenes in this game. It is absolutely beautiful at times. They're so cool and so well shot. There's clearly a lot of thought that went into this that didn't really go into the gameplay. I've encountered 2 boss fights so far. One was a tutorial boss, he was pretty easy, but these guys gave me a bit of a challenge. They did end up killing me the first go around. That was until I figured out I could level up my abilities. The skill point system is okay. You can basically just level up your raw damage stats, no extra abilities or anything. I assume that's acquired by getting the cybernetic enhancements or whatever they call it. Now, with all this criticism, the game isn't half bad, to be honest. It's a pretty basic RPG, but I like the fact they mix it with the twin stick shooter genre. It definitely adds some spice to the RPG genre in general. And I love to see developers mixing it up and getting away from the norm. It's great to see innovation like this in the industry. So if I had to give this game a rating based on my only 1 hour of gameplay so far, I'd give it a 6 out of 10. I'm hoping it's a slow burn. I do plan on finishing it. It's pretty fun to me. But I can definitely see where this game would drive some players away with the intro being so long. For our next contender, we have Mortal Shell, which is currently sitting around a 3.0 on the Microsoft Store. Seems like the good and the bad reviews are calling this a Souls-like, and the 1-star ones seemingly just calling the game too hard. But I mean, it's a Souls-like. You get what you pay for, or in this case, what comes on Game Pass. So, first impressions, just off this intro cutscene, I thought the game was ugly. But not ugly in a bad sense. It's very tastefully done, and you can definitely see the Dark Souls art inspiration, but it seems they made a lot of effort to want to differ from the Souls series, which I really respect. And oh my god, they did it. They made it so the tutorial isn't overwhelming, which I don't think is too tall of a task. They present you information and a realistic scenario in which you can use these abilities, which is great. Compared to the Ascent, it is a night and day difference. The information does not overwhelm you whatsoever, and there's only one prompt per mechanic, which is how it should be. As for the gameplay, I really enjoy it, like a lot. The exploration is fantastic. I think it's so well done. While exploring, you come across multiple shells, which are, from what I understand, warriors that died in the past, and once you inhabit these shells, you take the powers from that warrior and that shell. It's definitely an interesting mechanic that I really enjoy. It mixes up the gameplay a lot, and instead of like a classic RPG where you pick your character's class, you get to change it up during your gameplay, which I think is just a great idea. Next up, we have the combat, which is great. I love the combat in this game. It feels so crisp. Instead of going with the traditional Souls-like formula, like just rolling and attacking, there's multiple combos you can do with the weapons. And the hardened mechanic is so cool. Instead of forcing you to dodge, it gives you another option that you can actually counterattack with. If you're used to the Souls series, it definitely takes some getting used to, but once you actually get the flow of combat down, this game feels immaculate. It is so impressive. When you hit an enemy, it sounds impactful, it feels good, the feedback you get, especially playing on controller, I don't know, it just feels great. I love it. There's a lot of little intricacies to the combat that you just need to play to learn, but it is so worth it. It's so worth a try if you're into the Souls series. And finally, we have our boss fights. This is a staple of the Souls series. Souls-like games, you have to do your bosses right, and I think they did a great job. The first boss I encountered was Grisha here, and he kicked my ass. He beat the shit out of me. I died to this guy probably like 5-6 times before I decided to move on. I'm assuming it gets easier as you upgrade the characters, but this guy is tough, and I'm not complaining. It's not unfair. There's definitely moments where I could have played better and defeated the boss, but I had to move on. I try to keep my recordings just over an hour because the space they take up is ridiculous. I definitely need a new hard drive. So I decided to move on, and this was a blessing in disguise. This boss, Hadron, is so great. He's so well done, and it teaches you the mechanics of the game, like, so well. I also found this shell before the fight, which introduces like a Dark Souls style roll, which I really appreciate. It definitely made the game easier for me, coming from games like Dark Souls 3. This fight also gave me a run for my money, but it didn't take me more than 3 or 4 tries. Once you start to get used to the hardened mechanic and the dodges, the game starts to feel so good. The flow of combat just is on another level. I'm so impressed with the combat in this game. Another big element of the combat is parrying. It feels great. It's not Sekiro levels of parrying, that's hard to match, but it feels skillful. It feels so good to land a parry and then just wail on an enemy. It's so satisfying. I love it. So if you're a fan of the Souls series, you gotta give this game a try, especially if you have Game Pass. It's so worth the time. Especially since Elden Ring is feeling like it's taking forever, this is just a breath of fresh air, and it gives me something to do while waiting for that game. If I were to slap an arbitrary rating based on how much I like this game personally, I'd give it 8 out of 10 so far. I'm only an hour in, so that is definitely subject to change, but I can only see myself becoming more impressed with this game. It is such a great work. So with all that being said, I'm going to leave you with the end of this boss fight. I hope you enjoyed. This is definitely a new style of video for me. I really want to get into making this type of content. I really enjoy it. I feel very passionate about it. So if you enjoyed or you absolutely hated this video, let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe if you want to see more, and thank you so much for watching.